Hello everyone and welcome! I've already done a video featuring Wings of Fire characters as D&D classes, and since it was wildly popular and people have been begging for a sequel, here we are. I present to you today Wings of Fire villains as D&D classes. Starting off with the OG, we have Scarlet, an Oathbreaker Paladin. Paladins, as you'll remember from my first video with Winter, are holy warriors who swear oaths to their deity. However, on occasion, a paladin can swear to a crown or a people instead of a god, and that's what Scarlet did when she was crowned queen. She swore her paladin oaths to the Skywing Kingdom and its people. But an Oathbreaker Paladin is basically a fallen paladin. They've done something so bad that it shatters their oaths, and as a result they lose much of their power. Scarlet started out as queen and a regular paladin, until she committed atrocities outside her oaths that caused her to become an Oathbreaker. In the resulting chaos, during which many of her generals rose up against her, finally done putting up with her cruelty, Scarlet was forced to flee her own kingdom. Exiled from her home, without her crown, her throne, her power, and bereft even of her vows, Scarlet goes a bit insane. While paladins are a force to be reckoned with, championing the cause of goodness, Oathbreakers are the same for the powers of darkness. Wandering, cast out, with nowhere to go and injuries beyond repair, Scarlet's mind shatters. In the years since her banishment, even though a new paladin, her daughter, has taken up the throne, rumors still fly surrounding the old Skywing Queen. None know if she still lives or not, but every now and again, a Skywing will disappear without a trace, never to be seen again. It is whispered that Scarlet, or her vengeful ghost, haunts the foothills and edges of the Skywing Kingdom, waiting for her moment when she can dart in and snatch an unsuspecting dragon, attempting to rebuild her kingdom. Some have tried to find the old queen. None have ever returned. Most decide that Scarlet and her horrors are best left as whispered rumors for stormy nights, and watching glances thrown over a shoulder in the dark. Next, we have our only group for this round. A pair of wizards, a father-son duo, in fact. Arctic, a wizard of the School of Enchantment, and Darkstalker, a wizard of the School of Necromancy. So, wizards perform learned spells, and generally they pursue a specific school of magic. Like I said, Arctic is a wizard of enchantment, which means he specializes in mental manipulation and charming others. He, of course, grew up in the royal court of the Ice Kingdom, serving the queen with his spells and great knowledge. Back then there were very few wizards and even less schools where they could be educated. Arctic himself had studied in the Royal Icewing Academy, of course. Icewing schools were the most prestigious and famed in the land, and restricted only to Icewings themselves. However, when Arctic was still new in his service to the crown, he met and fell in love with a young Nightwing emissary, and it wasn't too long later that the two of them were sneaking out of the Ice Kingdom and heading south together to Foeslayer's home, the Kingdom of Night. Although their union was at first happy, Arctic later felt he'd made a mistake leaving the pristine elegance of his home. He could never return now. Arctic tried to distract from his regrets by establishing a school of magic in the Night Kingdom, inviting other prospective wizards, including his own son Darkstalker, to study there. With the aid of a very young Seawing wizard named Fathom, the school ran smoothly for some years. Unfortunately, it was not to last long, and the establishment of the school ignited fury in the hearts of the Icewings Arctic had abandoned. Filled with rage, they attacked the school one night and razed it to the ground, claiming that Arctic had betrayed them and stolen their secrets. The attack was devastating, and it was where Arctic lost his life. He was killed in the fierce and horrifying battle of magics that brought low the great halls of his school. But, you might be saying, if Arctic is dead, how is he part of our wizard duo? Well, you see, Darkstalker is a wizard of the School of Necromancy. Darkstalker was one of the first students to study under Arctic, and took quickly to the School of Necromancy despite his father's misgivings. Arctic disdained necromancy, as it was forbidden in the Ice Kingdom. Thanks to this attitude, Darkstalker was very defensive of his powers, and fought more and more with Arctic the older he got. However, Arctic was still his father and teacher, and when he died, something ugly took form in Darkstalker. Blinded by grief and furious at the attack that occurred within the borders of his own kingdom, Darkstalker raised Arctic from the dead, trying desperately to bring his father back. Sadly, this was no resurrection, but merely a reanimation, leaving Darkstalker in control of a mindless husk of his father. Beset by grief, Darkstalker takes Arctic and sets out for the Ice Kingdom, set on getting revenge for the death of his father. Side note, you might notice Arctic has a lot of red in his design, and most noticeably the blue crystal in his staff is contaminated with red stains. I was trying to imply that Arctic is no longer his own wizard, and while he still wields his old power, it is influenced and tainted now by Darkstalker's own. Alright, next we have Wasp, an aberrant mind sorcerer. Aberrant mind sorcerers are psionic casters whose power comes from an extremely powerful psionic being with which they've come in contact with. Generally, however, these sorcerers end up being enslaved to the beings who granted them power, and that is the case with Wasp here. Queen Wasp of the Hivewings, looking to increase her control over her own tribe, and the conquered Silkwing tribe she was attempting to subdue, dabbled a little too deep into the dark powers, hoping to learn some kind of mental manipulation. But when she traveled underground seeking knowledge of a plant known as the Breath of Evil, Wasp found herself caught by a superior intellect. When Wasp emerged from the caverns, she had rough vines and white flowers curling around her, and a strange new amulet hanging around her neck. While she seemed to have found the power she sought, the few who were close to the Queen said afterwards that she was never the same after that day. She was more distant, colder than she'd been before, and it wasn't long before that sudden change swept over the rest of the Hivewings as well. Now, when Wasp wanted control of those under her, she took it literally, leaving white eyes and absent expressions in her wake. Nobody knew what had taken over Wasp, or where she had gained these strange powers, and nobody ever found out. I really like how my Wasp drawing turned out. I've never really had a Wasp design that I've liked, but between the more lime yellow and the jagged black stripes, I really do like this one. I think she's one of my favorites I did this time. Next we have Blister, who is a subclass of rogue called Mastermind. This subclass is exactly what it sounds like. These rogues puppet from behind the scenes, employing smooth lies, clever tactics, and quiet schemes to manipulate the world around them. It's like this subclass was tailor-made for Blister, I'm telling ya. Blister is one of 3 Sandwing princesses, locked in a fierce battle with her sisters for the Sandwing throne. They've been at each other's throats for years, and in the meantime the Sand Kingdom has split into dozens of warring city-states, led by dragons such as Lady Thorn, the assassin Vulture, and the Ankh warlord. The 3 Sandwing sisters don't seem to notice or care that their kingdom has fractured during their distraction. Although outright war has not broken out, each sister seeks to kill the other along with their small contingencies of followers. Blister prefers more subtle methods of attempted murder, from setting other political rivals against her sisters, to hiring assassins, to poison attempts. Nothing has worked yet, however, and since Blister is no match for her sister Burn, and nobody can find Blaze's hiding spot, she spends as much time avoiding the wrath of her eldest sister as she does trying to kill her. Some may suspect that over time Blister has come to enjoy her life of shadows and manipulation a little too much, and may not even be trying to reclaim her throne anymore. But there's no way to tell, and since she hasn't stopped trying to kill her sister, these rumors remain only speculation. Whirlpool is a cleric, but not how you're thinking. He's a cleric of the death domain. Yeah, a cleric of death seems like it's right up Whirlpool's alley. Clerics don't have to be good, actually. If a cleric serves an evil god, they tend to have similar morals. Pretty much any evil god works, and following the teachings of a god of the death domain totally seems like the kind of thing Whirlpool would do. Whirlpool is an advisor to Queen Coral, and he's always been obsessed with power and those who wield it. The Queen's daughter Anemone is a magic user herself, and Whirlpool has spent much time trying to work himself into her council, to try and use her power for himself. However, when this didn't work, Whirlpool finally turned to other means, entering the service of a dark god in order to finally gain some powers of his own. Using his newfound powers, he begins to exert his influence over the Queen and Anemone, attempting to manipulate them into doing his will. After some time, it began to work, the two of them beginning to fall prey to subtle, whispering spells. Luckily, though, the two of them were saved by the timely interference of a young Seawing named Riptide, who realized that Whirlpool was doing something very strange to the Queen and the Princess. Whirlpool's design is my other favorite for this video, actually, tied with Wasp. I knew pretty much the moment I sketched it that I wanted his armor to be really sharp and outlandish and copper-colored, and it really worked out. It gives off this pompous kind of vibe, and the copper color goes really nicely with the coloring of Whirlpool himself. Also, he has little sword jewelry, because he's, you know, a cleric of death. And now we have Vulture, another rogue subclass known as Assassin. This one doesn't need any explanation. This is literally just his character from the book. Vulture is a rogue adept at knife play, poisoning and infiltrating pretty much anything to get to his target. Not only is he a famous and very expensive assassin, many of his descendants are too. His daughter Cobra and some of her dragonettes, although one turned out to be a bit of a disappointment. But after years of painstakingly building up his reputation, Vulture has finally carved out a cushy post for himself, ruling one of the city kingdoms in the tattered remains of the Desert Kingdom. While the royal family squabbles and fractures, smart dragons sense that blood in the water and swoop in to take advantage, and Vulture is one of them. He effectively retires from actively assassinating people. He is rich enough and powerful enough that he doesn't need to do that anymore, unless he wants to. Vulture had control of a city called the Scorpion Den for a long time, holding order with an iron fist and sucking the city dry of its riches and resources. And he probably would have kept it up for years longer if his authority hadn't been challenged by a newcomer, Lady Thorn, as many called her, though she wasn't noble, who was helped by none other than Vulture's own errant grandson. And after that, the Scorpion Den becomes embroiled in its own kind of war, as Vulture and Thorn both clash viciously for control, even as Vulture tries to find and take revenge on his useless descendant, Keebly. Alright, that'll wrap up today's group. I was kinda on the fence about doing a villains version, but I think this turned out pretty good, all things considered. Which dragons were your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you want to see an extended version of this video, including 2 extra villains, you can go check out my Patreon, where $10 supporters are getting an extra length video today, featuring content that is exclusive to my Patreon. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't seen my original Wings of Fire as Villains video, be sure to go check that out. It was a fun time, and I'm hoping to do more stories with those characters soon. Remember to check out the links in the description as well, leading to my new store, as well as Redbubble, DeviantArt, and Patreon. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful week.